Thank you, Director Wray. I'm going to try to look forward, then we'll talk a little bit about January the 6th. Uh, do you think the National Guard presence at the Capitol at the level we have today should continue? If so, for how long?
You know, Senator, I'm not sure that I'm really the best equipped to evaluate the National Guard presence.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Uh, you're the best equipped to talk about the capability of the FBI. Do you have enough people and resources to deal with all the threats we've been talking about this morning?
Well, needless to say, Senator, I welcome and appreciate the question. Everywhere I go, someone has really good ideas about things they think the FBI should be doing more of. But I have not found very many people with great ideas, or at least responsible ideas, of things the FBI could be doing less of. And so our folks are busting their you-know-whats
Yeah, I
to
know
try to
they
deal
are.
with all these threats. We need more agents, we need more analysts, we
Okay,
need
well,
more
let-
data
let's just-
analytics, et
let's
cetera.
Let's just stop there because we need to learn as much as we can from January the 6th. This is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Are you concerned about international terrorists paying us a visit?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you concerned about the interaction between international terrorists and domestic terrorists?
That's a growing phenomenon, certainly something we're watching with concern.
One of my great concerns was that as people flowed into the Capitol with backpacks on, you had no idea who they were and what they were carrying. So it'd been very easy for some international terrorist group to infiltrate this crowd. Do you agree with that?
I do think it would have been easy for that to happen. I don't know that we've seen evidence that it did happen, but that's certainly one of the specific things we're looking for.
After the attack, don't you think international groups are seeing this as a vulnerability in our system?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the.
International terrorist groups may have found a way to get closer to the Capitol by integrating themselves into domestic political movements.
Well, certainly, we think the events on January 6th have been, at a minimum, an inspiration to a number of terrorist extremists out there, and may even have been worse than that.
So here's my challenge to you. Sit down and put pen to paper, and in the think big, not small. What do you need that you don't have in terms of agents and resources? And put it to paper. I'm on the Appropriations Committee with Senator Durbin. Many of us here are. I think we've got an opportunity here to plus you up. Is it fair to say that since 9/11, domestic terrorism has exploded as a threat?
Well, it's certainly grown dramatically.
Okay, grown dramatically, which takes resources to combat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Has the FBI grown dramatically since 9/11?
Not as dramatically as the threat.
Okay, so what I want you to do is take the number of agents and resources you had on 9/11 and tell us where you're at today, and make sure that we understand that the threats you're facing are much greater than they were 20 years ago, and challenge us to give you the resources to meet those threats. Back to January the 6th, is it fair to say as director of the FBI, you were not informed of the raw intelligence coming from the Norfolk office? Is that correct?
Not before January 6th.
Okay. So this was an internet posting that somebody captured?
My understanding is that this was information posted online under a moniker or a pseudonym. It was unvetted, uncorroborated information, but it was, and it was somewhat aspirational in nature, but it was concerning. It was concerning and was specific enough that our folks in Norfolk thought the need to get it out, even if we hadn't had a chance to corroborate or vet it.
Okay, looking back, what would you have done differently with this information? Because this is a hard one. You get something on the internet that's concerning, you don't know if it's true or not, you capture it. What are the lessons learned in terms of how we could have acted better on that information?
I think the truthful answer is we're still looking at that. You know, this was, I look at intelligence, both collection, analysis, dissemination. We need to get better at collecting, obviously, but the key part here was we often don't have the luxury of time to analyze this information before it gets disseminated. And in this instance, our folks in Norfolk and Washington Field made the judgment that, and I think it was a reasonable judgment, to get the information, like I said, in 3 different ways to their partners even though
let's-
they didn't know whether it was going to turn out to be
Let's
accurate.
play that out a bit. Let's say it made it up to the top levels of the Capitol Police intelligence units, to the head of the Capitol Police Force. Given that raw intelligence, what would you expect them to have done differently?
You know, I really want to be careful not to be an armchair quarterback
See,
here.
that's the problem, because I don't know how to answer that question myself. Because you can capture stuff today that may foretell an attack tomorrow, but how much? This is a problem. I just don't want people to run down the road, there's an intel screenshot. I mean, there's a screenshot on some computer somewhere. We need to turn the whole government upside down. It's just a tough situation. Is the Proud Boys, are they a domestic terrorist group?
Well, I don't think we have treated the Proud Boys itself as a domestic terrorism group, but we certainly have individuals.
What does it take to make the list?
Well, there is, as you may know, Senator, under federal law, under U.S. law, there is no list of domestic terrorism organizations the same way there is for foreign terrorist organizations.
Well, let's think about that in the next 47 seconds. Oath Keepers, are they a domestic terrorist organization?
Again, as with Proud Boys, we have individuals who associate themselves with that group who are
Antifa a domestic terrorist organization? Same thing, same answer?
Same answer.
So why don't we think about how to gather better information and expose some of these groups? If they were on a list, would it make it easier for you?
I think the issue of whether or not to designate or have a formal mechanism for designating domestic terror groups in the same way we do with, say, Al-Qaeda or ISIS, I think there's reasonable debate about whether or not it would really advance the needle.
Is the KKK a domestic terrorist group?
Well, there is no legal designation for domestic terrorism.
My point is, I don't know if we should have one or not, but I think it's time to think about it.